Tim, we've heard from you today about how the Channel Islands are at the forefront of corporate governance. How do you see it over the next few years as to what the Channel Islands can do to make sure they maintain that position and also enhance their reputation over other international locations?
Well, you're right, Steve. The Channel Islands certainly have to continue to exert that first-class corporate governance we've seen in the last few years. I think the Global Audit Committee survey that we talked about earlier today has shown us that there are a number of areas where audit committees are certainly seeing as risk areas going forward that they need to stay on top of, around regulatory and compliance issues, around the uncertainty in the political and economic environment. So staying on top of those issues and the risks associated with those issues is certainly the number one thing on the agenda. I think connected to that, there's the people issue as well. Do we have the right people on the audit committees here in the Channel Islands, and will we continue to get the right people to meet those demands as we go into the future? And again, the Global Audit Committee survey that we talked about earlier today has shown us that the areas that would perhaps most improve audit committee effectiveness are around additional knowledge, around mergers and acquisitions, around industry expertise, and around financial expertise.
So Steve, we've heard today about one of the themes that's current at the moment in clear and concise reporting. How do people practically go around looking at that for their financial statements?
Well, that's a good question. The FRC and ISB have both been looking at this issue. ISB has had it on their agenda as a project to look at. Both parties, for the most part, have come up with some of the same recommendations, which really boil down to looking at the layout and structure of information in the accounts, how can it be coalesced and brought together in one point, making it easy to read straight there for the user, therefore also helping against duplication of information within that set of accounts. Materiality should be considered, applied appropriately, and remember that not everything in a standard is necessarily material in the context. A lot of the other comments and suggestions relate to being specific and relevant in the accounts, so talk about how things apply to your entity, not just generally what the standards or rules would require. All of this sort of sounds very easy. In practice, could be a little bit more difficult and does require a certain behavioural change and mindset change amongst preparers and users and auditors.